Good morning, Renee from Survival Chicks, or good afternoon, wherever you may be watching this from. Today, we have a really cool solution, which I really like to bring to our community. But I just want to bring a little disclaimer before we begin with our new guest. This is really not something that we are promoting in the sense of we are letting you know that this is a great opportunity and that you should do this. This is a solution and it is one potentially of many. And just like anything else, is really important for you to do your own diligence and to make sure that this one is right for you if you do indeed choose to work with it. So just wanted to put that out there. Just like everything else, maybe it's a tower garden. If it's not right for your family, it's going to be a waste of money. So it's really important for you to do your own critical thinking and decide if this is the right one for you. Welcome to Survival Chicks podcast, episode 4. Today, I am super excited to bring my new friend on. His name is Ray Brown. Ray has done all kinds of work in the community already with his podcast on different topics. He is an author with many different books from what I hear. And he has a really cool thing that he's bringing to the table today. And I'm really excited to talk about it. Welcome, Ray.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me as a guest.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
No,
So
it's
tell us a,
awesome
a
what you're
little
doing.
bit tell us a little bit about yourself before you tell us your cool new project.
Oh my God, who likes talking about themselves? I always put me on the spot. I think when you do that, I feel like this, this ego thing coming on. I gotta boast about myself. I always get uncomfortable. Um, like you said, I'm an author since 2016 onwards. And a podcast as well. I have 14 podcast shows. Um,
14.
I know, right? Not just one, not two, but that
How
just
do you have the time?
enchilada. Well, it's a couple of times a month. It's not every day. It's very time consuming. And I'm guilty that some of them haven't been updated in 2 months. And
I would guess.
yeah, and the listeners, I do watch the analytics. It seems like people keep listening to some of the episodes over and over again. And there's five popular podcast shows. I think people would gravitate towards those more than the other ones.
So what are the 5 most popular ones?
Spirituality is one.
Oh,
Dating advice. When I was single, being on dating apps, and I just talk about the amount of people that I spoke to and how the energy was and how things went completely disastrous to how things went. So anyways, I talk about my experiences with that. And then mental health is another really big one. The kind of challenges both men and young kids are going through, women are going through. And when I talk on behalf of women, it's mostly with a lot of female friends that I've had in my entire life. And I think on being single for a couple of years, being on dating apps, meeting or just engaging with at least hundreds of women online over and over, you get an idea of the state of mind that someone's in when they're talking to you. You can pick up on their energy. And even if you're meeting them face to face, you can see the kind of who they are that they're bringing to to you in front of you, right? So that I speak about that. And I've seen people that are not attached, very free, very positive. They don't have any insecurities, fear. But I've seen the flip side of it. People are very anxious. People are not loving themselves. They have doubts. They have fear, and they don't know where to go. So I've seen it all. I'm not judging. I just see it is what it is right in front of me. So I talk about that on the mental health side, depression. That's a big one. Why people get suicidal thoughts. And yeah, I think those are good. And it kept me entertained and kept me doing things that I wanted to, which was to help. If I can say something and people resonate with it, wonderful.
yes, absolutely. We all need to hear from other people's experiences to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. If it resonates.
Yes.
Yeah. I always stay away from, I don't want to tell people what to do.
No. And I say take what works and leave the rest.
good philosophy.
Yeah. One person can't be everything to everyone.
No, you can't. I think we all here for a reason, a purpose, and that purpose gets. I mean, it's such a massive effort by everyone, everything around you, from cartoons to media to the social conditioning to pull you away from your authentic self. And you know this. I think I'm assuming you know
Yeah,
this.
I'm really glad you brought that up. I feel like specifically in the last 3 years, it has really given people the opportunity to search for what it is that they are really supposed to do or what it is that they really love doing. I have countless amount of people who have, they either were shut out of their jobs or they left their jobs and they have gone in search for something that fuels them and makes them feel good. And I mean, and because of you and I talked about this briefly, but because of where we are with all of the things that are happening consistently, constantly, we're being bombarded by stuff. This is an opportunity for us to really rise up and shine our light, to really be bright. If this wasn't going on, would you be creating this project? No. If this wasn't going,
No.
yeah, if this wasn't going on, would I have created survival chicks? No. No, absolutely, for sure not. So,
You know what's interesting? I just want to add to that. I agree with you 100 everything that you said. One thing I noticed over the last 3 years when people were, I guess, use the term waking up. And, my question was, I kept listening because I love listening and talking less, just listening, just being present, giving people space and just breathing. Sometimes people forget to breathe. And slowly I started asking questions. If you don't know or yet who you are and you're waking up, what are you waking up to? So if it's not your values and morals, and if it's somebody else's ideals, again, just be mindful would be my question to when I would ask is, what are you waking up to? If it's someone else's ideals or someone else's, sense of freedom or sovereignty or natural law or, common law, all these phrases are brought up continuously, there's so many perspectives out there, so many perspectives. And that is what causes, first cognitive dissonance. And then when you have fear on top of the cognitive dissonance, it creates mass formation. So you've seen it, I've seen it. And some people that have done a lot of work around psychology, like I've studied psych, done a work around the consciousness. We tend to see how vibrations low and high pull people. But a lot of others that are just in the 9 to 5 into their particular routine before the pandemic came and so forth, that it hit them hard.
I bet. Yeah.
And I have no high expectations. I have nothing. I'm just observing what's happening. And I feel where they're stuck. I feel the pain. I feel what do I do now?
Yeah. I hadn't thought about it like that. For a long time, I was wondering why I am able to see and others are not. Like, what happened to me? So I've been really analyzing my journey, where I've been, to see, like, at what point did I start thinking for myself or critically thinking or trusting myself? Because that was certainly not always there. So I think certain life events had to happen for me to get to this place. And thank God they happened some time ago so that I was already, and I don't want to say I was already like awake. Like I guess I already knew who I was, what my values were, and how to decipher between things. And then, I just learned way more information in the last 3 years that I had no idea was taking place around the globe.
Yeah, what you said is really interesting. And I think a lot of people, to what I'm going to say, might relate or I guess get what I'm, coming from. we all, from my perspective, again, this is my perspective, we all descend from another form of life before, we wake up in this body, in this lifetime. And not everyone is equal, because how we were vibrating in our past lives or in our other journeys and who we were, we carry that into this lifetime. And when you are seeing things and others are not, um, we don't know what journey they're on.
Right.
We don't know when they're gonna get it. It
Yeah.
may be this lifetime, maybe it may be in another lifetime,
Hmm.
or multiple lifetimes, right? We don't have those answers, and that's why I always encourage people: don't force people to
Hmm.
look at your perspective and just agree and be in line with your perspective. And I know here's a tough subject, right? The LGBTQ, the trans community
Hmm.
want to read to
Hmm.
the kids. I look at
Hmm.
that and I'm disgusted,
Hmm.
right? But now imagine if these groups of people were chemically engineered to have their consciousness impacted. So who they are, that's over time, now they're defining themselves as that. Now, if someone comes out and says, hey, you were chemically over time altered, they'll be defensive because it's like, no, no, this is who I am, because that's how, like, they'll just go off. Who knows how they're going to go off? And, how do you deal with something like that that's in our communities?
Yes.
Right. So if we're trying to create a sovereign community or direct democracy or anything like that, I know I'm shifting gears, but I'll come back to the whole consciousness side. It's, we have to look at these kinds of things that really, propel us. So those are forms of how we're trying to do is we're trying to re-identify. Identity is a form of attachment. So I know you mentioned that you are spiritual, into shamanic stuff and so forth, right?
Hmm.
So the actual word, the Sanskrit meaning of the word yoga is union with yourself. And doing that whole journey of union with yourself means you got to remove all the attachments around you, right? Identity, right? Your titles, roles, they all got to go. So
Hmm.
when they are all gone and you ask yourself who you are, like, who are you?
Right.
The answer
Yeah.
should be, I'm nothing, but everything at the same time, because being nothing removes the whole attachment of you in your body. And now your atoms and molecule level, your thoughts are connected to the ether. All this stuff, ether, atoms, molecules, quantum mechanics, quantum entanglement, they're all just words,
Hmm.
right? Even sovereignty is a word. Even so, if how much power do you want to give these words?
Well, that's the thing. So the brain already recognizes those words. And so when we bring up those words, the brain knows exactly what they mean, right? So
But which
it's
brain? The conditioned brain or the authentic subconscious brain?
well, I think the subconscious brain, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think when people don't know, my perspective, people don't know who they are, they're going to tap into their subconscious brain in their dreams. But when they're
Yeah,
alive consciously, they are going to be forming to their way of living and identity through validation all around you. It's like, hey,
sure.
like social validation. So their consciousness is a little bit, um, it's formatted differently than, when you're authentic, you start removing all of that. You're not too attached. If someone, you know swears at you, it's like,
Oh, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
it's like
There's
you
yeah.
don't take
And it
anything personal. It's like you're present, but you're not living in the past, you're not running into the
mhm,
future, you're actually enjoying the present. Balance, I guess, is another word that resonates with me, is that when people are not balanced, you'll see
mhm,
that in the way that they talk, in the way that they conduct themselves, and how defensive they are.
mhm.
And I think you
And
know.
that's one of the reasons why there's so much people getting offended everywhere because of words. And I'm like thinking this is just a word. Like what
Yeah.
like where have you gone with this? Like what difference does it make?
What's the energy behind that word? If someone says, I love you, right? And if they actually mean it, you'll hear the vibration out of those words
Mm,
hit you. If
you're gonna
someone says,
feel it.
yeah, if someone says, hey, I love you, okay,
Right.
see, there's a different tone.
Hmm.
right? So words are, magic because they have a vibration, a tone. And when you have experience in life, or whether you're just going through a walk in the forest, or a path, in nature, and you're connecting with the sounds of the birds, the wind, everything, the aroma of the flowers, you are taking it all in your own, at your own pace, and seeing what that means to you. Is your heartbeat, beating too fast? Is it beating too slow? Just being connected. That's what it means. When you remove all that, you actually start realizing how connected you are to everything else, because you actually don't need your body. When we're dreaming, we're not in our body, right?
Hmm.
And that's when we, tap into quantum entanglement. That's when we tap to astral traveling. And that's where we have deja vus a lot of times, right?
Hmm. And nice, clear messages.
Yeah. But so yeah, anyways, let's I can go on talking about spirituality and consciousness.
Oh, same.
But yeah, those are wonderful topics. And people will be like, wait, keep talking more. But yeah, we
Well,
want to talk about
we
other
have
pressing.
something really exciting to
Yeah,
discuss here today.
exactly.
Okay, so why don't you tell us about it? Let the cat out of the
Um,
bag.
okay, so my background is in media. So I studied psych. I grew up in BC, British Columbia. I spent the last 20 years in Ontario. And I took a lot of my companies private, sold them privately, took one public in 2014. And here, do I have screen share access? I'll just quickly, as I'm talking to you, share.
I think so. You could try it out.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
Okay.
So So this is the SEC filing of me taking my company public in 2014. People can, it's Indigo Engine is a reverse merger takeover. It's a public document on the sec.gov website, and people can, look at what I've done. My legal name is, over here, Rajinder Brar. Ray Brown is my author name. You can see how many shares I had. You can see I was, CFO, CEO, and president. And it just tells you what I was able to do.
And what
And
was the name of the company?
the reverse merger takeover was a company that was called Indigo Energy, and we took over that existing publicly traded company, and then we renamed our company HD IMAX.
Okay.
So it was a video streaming company. So it changed from one industry to another. But when you do a uh, reverse merger takeover, you don't have to create a brand new publicly traded company. Another already existing one that's not doing well is willing to sell its entity or ticker symbol over to you.
Got it.
It's a much faster process to go public. So you find out new things, you discover how things are done, you
Mm.
find out how the SEC works. You get to meet with really big investment firms that have hundreds of millions to billions of dollars that they spend. So this was way before the pandemic happened. So that journey was precious to me. It was valuable to me. It gave me a lot of wisdom. I knew before how corrupt the system was, how media was, jaded
Ah.
and shaded. Uh, Being in psychology, before I did all of this in Vancouver, I also did a lot of consulting work, like think tank work, creating methodologies for ad agencies and clients. So some of the work that I did was for government, helping the
Oh,
Ministry of
interesting.
Transportation, Ministry of Health here in British Columbia, working with ministers. So seeing how things are done behind the curtains,
Mm.
not just in politics, but in media,
Hmm.
was interesting before I even launched any of my companies.
I bet.
And so fast track to 2014, took a company public, ins and outs of how SEC works, the regulations, getting things audited, being transparent. All that was great, but the whole premise around why I wanted to do that was because I wanted to create content that would inspire people, that would create more critical thinking, or create the discussions. Because it's fascinating watching something that just captivates you and you're just awestruck when a good screenwriter and a director come together and create a project. I wanted to create that kind of platform for wonderful content. Things fell apart after I went public in 2015 when a couple of investment companies, big ones, Guggenheim, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, said, we want you to change the content. We want everything that you see. We want a lot more LGBTQ, a lot of other sinister stuff. And that didn't resonate with me. I said, I have friends, that are gay, but they don't even, they feel sometimes too much stuff like that, in TV content or TV shows. They're like, well, that's just weird. So why are you shoving this down, and forcing me to do this? So they gave me an ultimatum. They're like, sit back, be the face of this company. You're a billionaire. Or if you resist us, we'll crush you, or we'll crash your stock and so forth. So I walked away. I didn't want to be part of that zoo, didn't want to be part of that stuff. I could have if I wanted to really thrive in saying, who cares about humanity? Who cares about people? They're dumb and stupid anyway.
I'm a billionaire.
I'm a billionaire, right? So let me make them all my slaves, right? Let me make them my bitch. Excuse my language. And I don't know, deep inside, I couldn't do that. It wasn't all about money. I wasn't motivated about money. And I thought hard and I walked away. So that experience was very valuable. It stayed with me. And they also, I came after me because after a few months, I went private. I started my other media companies again, started making a phenomenal amount of money, 7 figures a month. And they saw that at that trajectory, I was going to be making for one project, 30 million a year. And I was going to launch 3 more, and that would accelerate to 60 to 90 million a year in revenue. And I had very low overhead. So a lot of profit that I was going to put to good use back in the community. And they came after me hard. With just bullshit, lawsuits that made no heads or tails, got a hold of my clients that were paying advertising dollars and, leverage them, with, I guess, bullying tactics and say, hey, cancel the contract with Ray's company. We'll give you other, rewards. And just out of the blue, relationships that I've had 5 years, 8 years, clients just calling me saying, gotta cancel. I'm like, why? What happened? They're like, I can't, nobody gave me a straight answer. And I have emails of this, it's making no sense, right? So these are $100,000 a month contracts, $300,000 a month contracts, and there's dozens of them disappearing. Your 7-figure monthly revenue, gone. Simultaneously, when that's happening, they're suing me, right? For bullshit.
Wow.
So the lawyers, even my own lawyer, I found out a year after, was on their payroll. So he's pretending to be my lawyer, but everything
No.
oh yeah. So this is the kind of dirty stuff that they play. And I did get tested. I'm not who I am now, like the way that I control my energy now. I wasn't that good back in 2016, 2018. Oh no, they rocked my world. I would get pissed off. I'm like, and again, I'm going back to this corrupt political system, of course, and court system, asking and looking for justice.
Right.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
The judge in itself, that twice, I remember in her, I guess, decision, labeled, it's a public record. In her decision, she's like, I'm trying to be Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie Catch Me If You Can, and I'm trying to do scam and fraud. And I'm like, what have I done? Like nothing. Like there's no evidence. Like she's creating this into some kind of like weird theory with no beginning to end. I'm like, you just compared me to a film star of a movie, and like I had no. It was just weird because every lawyer that I would try to get in Toronto, they would get them, because at the end of the day, if lawyers, you can't trace a lawyer. Lawyers are lawyers because they're there for the money, not for the actual. They don't want to really help. I'm not saying all lawyers, but I would say majority of the lawyers, they don't want to really help you. They'd be like, before I talk to you, I need a $2,500 to $5,000 minimum retainer. Then I'll talk to you. And when I do talk to you, I'm just going to quote you some law and charge you $300 to $500 an hour. Yeah. So it's just a money-making hustle that somehow has been legalized. And I'm like, I'm out of this. Like I go, you guys play your own little crooked games. I'm out. And I just walked away. I'm like, do whatever you got to do. I go, I'm not playing that game. And they just stopped. So when they stopped, they just wanted me out of that industry. They wanted me out of there because I felt, I'll say one thing and I'll get to why we're on this call to talk about Sovereign Bank. When I was meeting with Guggenheim Partners, the weirdest thing happened was, David, one of the senior executives, they manage billions of dollars of funding. They invest in Facebook and majority of the media companies, film companies, TV shows. So they got their fingers into everything. So David said, we're sitting in a round oval table and I'm sitting here, he's sitting at the end, and he tells me to come over, and I lean over and he says, Ray, I'm like, yeah. He's like, and the rest of the people on the table are talking about financials and other stuff like that. He's like, we never saw you coming. And I'm being Will Smith, right? I'm like, well, I go, I'm not that hard. I'm 6'6". You can't miss me, right? Of course, you're gonna see me coming, right? But I knew what he meant. I knew that they had access in the way that he spoke, in ways to see things coming ahead of time and keep their eye on it. I'm not talking about spying through phones and all that kind of stuff. This is something way above and beyond, right? And he's sitting there smiling. He's like, how much are you looking for? 50 million, 100 million, of your shares that you want us to sell? He's like, it's just money. And he's just laughing, it's just money. And I'm like, yeah, but you have it. He's like, you'll have it too. You just got to be part of the club. He's like, and he's just sitting there smiling. He's like, we never saw you coming. He's like, it's amazing. You slipped by everything. And that night in New York, when that meeting was happening, I had an interesting experience, call it a visitation or whatever else, at 5 o'clock in the morning from an entity I can't even explain, right? It's one of those kind of, so then I knew, and I connect the dots. I'm like, there's access to stuff that you have to either experience it, because they're operating at a level that they're not after the money. All this political system, all the stock market, everything came clear to me. I'm like, this is not about the money. This is about consciousness. This is about your subconsciousness, where you go in your dream. Because when you operate and travel at that quantum level, why do you think CERN was created? Right? To collide and break, and create a black hole, quantum traveling. So I'm like, holy, and then just sparks started coming out of my body. I'm like, okay, so what am I not seeing? And how do I need to improve myself more? So I'm descending from somewhere from a past life. I'm going, undetected through these kind of, patterns.
Oh, it's so interesting. I have goosebumps.
And I'm arriving here. I'm like, who am I? That was a question. Yeah. I'm like, who the fuck is inside this body that, like, speak up, speak louder so I can hear you, right? So this is me, like, being a joker. Like, I have a wonderful, beautiful partner. I love her, with all my life. And, but sometimes, like, you don't meet a lot of people that see you and get you. So I love being alone, because I rather in that aloneness, I'm not depending on anybody, because when you invite other people in that don't get you, you're picking up on their energy.
Oh,
and if their
100%.
energy is just like, or they're jealous or they're envious, you pick it all up, right? Or at least I do. So anyhow, so that was that experience. And I'm like, wow. So in 2018, when I decided to do audiobooks and podcasts, I wanted to talk about journeys. I wanted to talk about more about vibrations, because I took a deep dive from 2018 to 2017 to 2018 to go deeper into spirituality, because there's something inside of me, outside of all the corporate work that I did, that was always there, the baseline of it. So I was born in India, so there was mystics and shamans that our family was always around. So I went and met with one of the shamans in his ashram, and we had a wonderful conversation for hours. And he was gifted. And this was back in 1996. I went back to visit, and then I went back again in 2012. And then I had a conversation with him. But everything he told me back in 1996 about who I was going to be, it all came true. So call it him having psychic abilities. But when he told me all that, again, I give an example of Will Smith because joke like him. I'm like, are you trying to recruit me into your cult? Like, what's your agenda? You're like, I said, I'm not converting into a shaman. I just, but anyways, he said, my golden gates are going to open at after 44, and I'm going to be a gifted writer. Again, I'm into podcasting and not writing. So it's and a lot of other scenarios that he mentioned were just so in line with it, call it a prophecy. And I'm like, holy shit! I go, that's just weird, super weird. And when all of this started happening, there were just so many coincidences I couldn't ignore with the visitation and also my abilities to tap into people's energy. So one of the things that was told was the way that I see the world or see people, not everybody does that.
Mm-hmm.
And my flaw is I give people the benefit of the doubt that they have those abilities when they don't.
I used to
Some
do
do,
that.
right? But not
Yeah.
everyone does.
Yeah.
So don't give people the benefit of the doubt when they haven't earned it.
No, I think we can see that clearly now. I also did the same thing before and I was constantly going, what?
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
going on here?
Yeah. So when the pandemic happened, I'm sitting here watching. A lot of my friends are calling, going, you're in media, and I know the publishers at the Toronto Star, the National Post, the Globe and Mail. They're, and all across Canada and the U.S. and the USA Today and so forth, and many other publications, Condé Nast and so forth. And I'm like, I made some calls after the pandemic. I'm like, how come you guys are not asking hard questions? Like, where's the journalism? It took a nosedive, right? Um, and everyone was quiet as a mouse, petrified, scared, given gag orders to just shut up. I'm like, that's weird. And so off, the other phone, burner phones, whatever people like, yeah, there's something else is going on. We can't talk about it. I know I'm on a burner phone, but we can't ask questions. Like, we'll be fired. And a lot of journalists ignored them and did ask questions. And when you look back, how many journalists were fired?
Mm-hmm.
Even politicians in Canada, in the House of Commons, or when they asked questions, they were just removed. And I'm like, this is weird. This is the kind of different kind of tyranny and authoritarianism that we haven't seen.
Mm-mm.
But it's fear-based, and it was created out of a scare of a threat. So, and again, who do you give your power to? And people are so conditioned to give their power to, I mean, consider the government like a god. That validation from God/government is so huge. It's no different than a church.
No, it's like looking up to mommy and daddy to give us the words to tell us how to do things or what the next thing is. Authority is higher on people's list than the quality of the authority.
Yeah, you're right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so I knew right when the pandemic happened, I'm like, all right, this is going to be a mess. People are in for they're in for a challenge. They may not be ready to get to a point in their life consciously or subconsciously, but you know what they're ushering on, they're going to be pushed. So is this no more now I'm going to go with my flow or on
Yeah.
my own, I have my own journey. No. They're going to push, rather whatever your journey are, they're pushing, so that's what happened. And I knew that I had a lot of things that I wanted to do, but I don't think people were ready to have a conversation. I don't think they were ready to even listen. So I just needed to back off, and I did. I had soft conversations, and and I just people had to process. People lost loved ones, people lost their health. A lot of people still trying to figure this out lost their lives. They're not here to talk about because they're dead,
Mm-hmm.
right? About their journey, their mindset. So who's going to talk about their stories?
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's left, that was present to I guess understand is the only ones left. But what happens if they're gone as well, right?
Or what happens if they don't understand?
Yeah.
There's a lot of mystery behind it, right? People just don't understand why they're
No,
losing loved ones, young loved ones.
that's the cognitive dissonance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wrapped with mass formation as icing,
Yep.
right?
Conditioning,
So you
all of
got
the
you got
things.
brain fog there, and you have a certain
Yep.
paradigm that you're believing in, and that is your reality.
Right. And
So
you're completely distracted. You haven't spent any time looking inward.
no,
Like, the average person, if I say, when was the last time you checked in? They'll go, what do you mean? So they don't look inward. They don't meditate. They don't check in.
they don't even know. I think some people, I mean, it could be some or most, don't know what meditation means.
No.
They may have a commercialized version of it, like what they see in movies or books, but someone asked me, what does meditation mean? I said, everyone is different. I connect with water the most and wind, right? So when I'm taking a shower or washing my face and I touch water, whether it's for 5 seconds or 30 seconds or 15-minute shower, that's my meditation.
Mm.
One meditation. Because
Hmm.
I'm totally somewhere else when I'm taking a
Yeah.
shower, right?
Yep.
Or the touch of water, because that's the power of you being, I guess, removing attachment and being connected to things and elements outside of your body and awareness, right?
Mhm.
So I think when you start to understand how that process works, you start to begin to understand what meditation is. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then the body's an instrument too, right? So people talk about the third eye, people talk about different zones. And if you, again, understand how your body is engineered, you'll begin to improve your health like that.
Right. And then, the body's an instrument. I like that. So you've got to keep it sharp and tuned.
Oh, absolutely.
But who does that? I mean,
No,
so
no.
some people do,
Some do.
right?
Yeah.
Some do. But for the majority of people, like, they're bombarded with commercials of garbage food and they eat garbage food. Like,
Yeah.
many people don't even know what garbage food, is, like what the difference is. So how
Yeah.
can we really expect someone who is not keeping their instrument tuned to be able to use that instrument?
Healthy shake.
I've got my little cup here.
Don't engage.
It's
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Don't engage the sheep. It's an alternative to coffee. I just found it. It's called mud water.
Ooh.
It's probably a little bit over my price range at the moment because it comes from the US, but it is delicious. It's like a blend of, well, I think it's delicious. It's a blend of like adaptogenic mushrooms and some cacao and some ginger, and it
Mm,
just feels very nourishing.
nice. Interesting. I gotta look into that.
Yeah.
Uh, Mud water. Yeah, we'll talk later about that.
All right.
So yeah, anyways, in 2022, I created an online platform called Global Rethink. And I wanted to create where people can just all these different group organizers, whether it's in the Freedom Convoy or health related, they were just scattered everywhere. I'm like, why don't everybody just come together, share and talk about their ideas, what they need in terms of support and funding,
Community.
right? Community unity, actual unity, and talk
Yeah.
about an action plan. Because right now,
Yes.
people have to go to like 50 different websites, 50 different or
Mm.
more, and they're all like it's hard for people to. So, anyways, that I built it, but oh my god, trying to get people to come together. I mean, group leaders was disaster. There was so much ego. Like, no, 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 I need to do
Oh.
this on my own because I am going to be the savior. I'm like, oh,
Oh. Okay.
okay. We said that at the same time.
Okay.
Uh, I'm like, okay. I don't know. I'm like, why do you want to be a savior? And he's like, well, don't you? I'm like, no, I'm looking for leaders. I am creating solutions and ideas. I'm like, so you think I want to be a savior? And I get curious when people ask questions, and I'm like, tell me more. Why do you think I want to be a savior? Right? I'm not collecting votes. I'm not, He's like, well, you might be looking for money, or I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'll be looking for money because these projects need funding. But we have to make that money that's coming in transparent. Do you think that's a good idea? They're like, no. I'm like, why? they're like, have you invested or have you, donated to our cause? I'm like, no. He's like, then I don't need to talk to you. I'm like, oh, so you only talk to people that give you money? And again, this is a joke. Maybe it's not appropriate to some listeners that are going to listen to this, but this is me in real time talking, right? So I'm like, so if I paid you $20 for a lap dance, you'll dance. And anyways, it was just like, so, that's what prostitutes do, like, or people that are, trying to, like, I'm like, we should have a conversation without there being $20, or $10, whatever, to
On the
it.
table. Yeah.
And so I said, so that means you really don't disclose what you're doing with the money that you're raising. So you could be buying a house, you could be, spending it on vacations, and people
Sure.
think, um, and I said, yeah. And I said, what is your plan of action? It's like, oh, we're going back to the government. We're going back to oh, so your plan of action is to go back into the corrupt system,
Right.
knock on their door and saying, sorry, we know you've been screwing us over,
Yeah.
but can we get some justice from you? Right? So yeah, we know what you're gonna do. You're gonna shut the door back on us, but this is the hope that we're selling to our members, and they're giving us money. So we have to show with our picket signs that we're doing something. But just go ahead, shut the door. Once you shut the door, we're gonna go back to them saying, hey, we tried. They shut the door. Like, that's a no-brainer. Like,
Unfortunately, that is all the solution based stuff that I have seen, right? Let's go back to the government. Let's go and ask them to help us out. And I'm like, but they are the problem. I think I just feel like we saw it with the truckers. So I've been thinking about this for some time. And I'm like, in the past, before the pandemic, people would come together, they would gather with unity, they would gather with numbers, and that would do it. You go in front of the parliament with a bunch of numbers, and they're going to be, okay, yeah, whatever you want, right? Well, we clearly saw with the truckers that this did not, um, it's not a game of numbers anymore. This isn't something that we can just gather in front of the doors of the government and they will change their policy for us, because clearly we had the largest amount of numbers we've ever seen in this country and that did not work. So we need to go to a different level, I feel like. And so I was thinking for a long time, like, what is it that we can do then if those original tactics from before don't work anymore? What is it that we are to do? So we've been leading to it, but really parallel systems, right? So at first I thought, we need to, get into, like, break into the government and get the right people in there. And then I realized that no, the entire system is corrupt. That's really probably not going to happen. And if it does, it would be a very difficult journey. And then I thought we got to burn the system down. We got to get rid of the system and start a new system. Well, again, another difficult task. I feel like we're putting our energy on that thing that we don't want, that isn't working. And I'm a
mhm,
sole believer that if we are going to achieve something positive of high vibration, we need to look at that thing. We need to keep our eye on the divine, as my shaman friend says. So we need to look at that thing of high vibration and we need to be aligned with that thing of high vibration. And so that does not include looking at those people that are fucking us. It can't include that, right? It's like,
yeah,
and then I there's the balance where we still have to understand what exactly is going on in life. We can't just close a blind eye and go, oh, nothing, none of it matters. We just need to look over here. But we need to be focused on the thing that we want to create. And I just think those are parallel systems. And so we can do things for ourselves, which I think is the easiest way of doing it. It's to take steps inertly and to take steps outwardly for ourselves personally, rather than trying to convince a bunch of people to walk with us. Let's just do it on our own. A, it's going to benefit me. And B, if people see me doing it, they're going to go, oh, look what she's doing. And then they may do it. And then if they do it, then we're going to get further and further.
mhm. No, I totally resonate and agree with what you said. I think we have to, if we're not whole and balanced inside, and we're going and marching somewhere else, we're going in that direction broken.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
it's not that difficult for anyone in on that broken journey to trigger you,
Oh, mm-hmm.
right? So it's good. It's good that what you said, but you know, and I've been looking a lot for a plan, an actual plan of action. I know Jordan, I don't want to talk too much about him, but Jordan Peterson is coming out with his arc. And I am sitting there going, his platform arc, and I looked at it, I looked at the people involved. Listen, I have a lot of respect for, intellectual people, sound people. But if you ever, as a citizen or a human being, whatever you want to define yourself as, being, whatever, if you ever decide to forgive or just pass over your ability to ask questions, no matter who it is,
100%.
what you're doing is giving them a free pass.
Well, and it's the same. So if we just don't ask questions of the government and, they do these things to us, if we decide, okay, the government isn't good, but this person is good, and I'm going to put my faith in whatever it is that they say, I'm good. No, again, it's the same. They could already be corrupt or not have your best interests at heart. It doesn't even matter. Maybe they come from the best place, but at the end of the day, maybe it's not the right choice for you. So we can't leave our decisions to someone else. Just as a side note, if anybody's hearing any kind of weird sounds, I have chickens in the room.
And yeah, I saw them earlier. They're quite cute.
They're scratching around, so I'm like, oh, maybe they can hear.
No, I didn't hear anything. But if someone does now, you know what that scratching noise is. Yeah, Jordan is Peterson. Dr. Peterson is. I'm not a follower or a massive fan of his. I admire what he's done. I respect everything that but I am not. I would question hard. I mean, he's good with words, on an intellectual side, and he can hold people firmly in a conversation. That's amazing. That requires intelligence. But listen, if one day our paths do cross, I would ask him hard questions in terms of this whole purpose around this plan, the arc. At the end of the day, and how he talks, how he conducts himself in terms of energy, he has a certain pattern of a lecturer, like, hey, he's a professor. And if I listen to him for too long, maybe 20 minutes or more, I'll fall asleep because he has a particular, like, I don't resonate with him. I'm not disagreeing with what he may be saying.
Sure.
But it's almost like I'll tune out. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going to keep my eye on it. And, it's, I think his intentions are good, but we'll see how they play out. And I don't really see, let's see what that happens with Jordan. But with what I wanted to do with Global Rethink, it didn't happen back last year with all the, people with ego coming in. And I'm like, okay, maybe people aren't ready for change. Maybe they need to go through, because, okay, look at it, the pandemic, as you're in a relationship and you just discover that your partner cheated on you. And not just cheated on you, you walked in on your partner cheating on you. And what you're doing now is saying, it didn't happen. Nope, that wasn't you. It was just, I'm having, some type of memory meltdown. It's okay. So you're in denial.
Or it's, well, if I take in this information and, believe it is true, that would have to mean that I will need to do something about it and it will change everything in my life.
Yep.
And I'm not prepared for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It will literally change everything. It will change my relationship. It will change where I live. It may change how I look after my kids. It may change how many times I see my kids. It will change how much income I have. It will change everything.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. There are a lot of people that think like that, and they don't. And also the dependency issue. Like, if I took a stand, then that framework, dependency is gone. And then I have to be alone.
I have to be alone. That's a big one.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
So I think people weren't ready. So I'm like, okay, so last year, I backed off. And I'm like, okay, I'll just wait till certain sequences of events out of my control by whoever's, pushing these events end up coming to fruition.
people then will be like, okay, we need a solution.
Yeah.
Or see, when people think like that, I think they are going to want to have a conversation. And I'm all about, let's have a conversation without ego. And I think, that, and pride. And pride is a tricky one, because people say, well, you need pride, or pride is wisdom and so forth. I'm like, no, that's balance. Don't confuse, pride with ego is a bad mixture. Pride in itself that is balanced is a good thing. So there's two distinctions, right? So back in early January, when I felt the censorship online, social media was just accelerating. No one's posts were being shown. And I'll just touch on it for 30 seconds. I think social media in its own over the last 3 years, especially with those people waking up, freedom movement and so forth, it's disastrous. People are just sitting there posting nonstop every day about nonsense. And I don't even go on there and post anymore, anything inspiring, but they're just regurgitating the stuff over and over and over again, on looking for likes, it's like asking a friend, like this whole phrasing of asking a friend. What happened to your friends? Why are you looking for strangers, and postings of asking for a friend? So all this patterns of addiction to dopamine on social media was just accelerating. And that is a disconnection, because that is, again, coming back to now wanting to be alone, not wanting to take time. Because if you're sitting alone and you got a phone in your hand, you're not really alone.
No, that's
You're in
not
a
the
whole
same.
other noise, right?
No. Yeah.
So when you can't disconnect from that, and you're constantly, in our ways, like I got to post something, for validation or a dopamine hit, or hey, I have friends, I have people, that gives them some sanity. It's an unhealthy sanity, but to them, it's some type of addiction. I call it, just call it what it is. It's an addiction.
It has to be an addiction.
Yeah. And so when that was happening and people weren't able to connect, I felt a shift happening of now the good old days before social media, when people actually had face-to-face conversations and critical thinking was, invoked in most of those conversations, or, laughter. I'm like, hey, maybe that's rising up. Let's see what happens. I ended up creating a group, end of January, beginning of or February, called 15 Reject 15-minute cities. It took off. I think within a few days it had 5,000 members, and then 10,000 members in less than a week, and it's still growing, right? So, and when I looked at all the members, where they're from, half of them from Canada, the other half were from the UK, and the rest were from the US, right? So I'm like, that's an interesting balance of, demographic of users. So, and a lot of these users started signing up for Global Rethink in case the group gets taken down. So I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, so what are we headed? And an opportunity came to me about, when all the digital ID stuff, because that 15-minute city is connected to digital ID, healthcare, and the government in Canada was passing this healthcare bill with the provinces all to sign up. And one of the conditions was digital ID needed to be connected to the funding of the health plan that the provinces were going to get, 20 billion or whatever that the federal government was going to do. So there was no democracy there. The public's not being told actually what's happening. There's no transparency. There's no, hey, I get to vote on this. None of that is happening, right? None of that's ever happened during the pandemic, right? So there's no direct democracy like Switzerland has being applied, not just in Canada, but in the US or the UK. So I'm just sitting back on, if people are going to get rocked, how are they going to be rocked the most biggest way now? So I saw, in a nutshell, okay, you know what? There's going to be a financial pandemic that's going to be like the pandemic we had 3 years ago, but this is going to, how massive financial security is to people in their lives. It's like, well, oh my God, what's your credit score? I got to have my credit score almost this high.
Well, but we just saw it. We just saw a great example of it. So people were forced to go get a medical experiment that they didn't want. Some people did not want. And they went through with it anyways, because there was no other option, no foresight on what else they could do to sustain their way of living. So right then and there, we know that people are very attached to their way of living and how they are bringing in some income. So
Yeah.
we can see exactly, well, we can see some of what is going to take place if we were to take that away.
Yeah. No, no, same example for the pandemic, doing that with financial, crash the market, crash the currency, take people's mortgages, crash them, housing market, crash them, pensions gone, GICs, investments, all that gone,
Mayhem.
right? People are going to freak out
Well, I mean,
unless there's a solution,
of course,
right?
people are going to freak out because it's going to be so massive. It's going to be such mayhem. Like people
Yeah.
won't know what to do.
Yeah. And so that's where I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, so as I'm sitting here, pondering and having my milk and cookies, um, seriously, I have milk and cookies.
Okay, Santa.
I
Green
have I
green
have
milk
dorky
and
habits.
cookies.
I don't do
Green
drugs. I
milk.
don't drink alcohol, but I'll have, milk and cookies. No naps. I did that when I was young. And okay, there's got to be a plan. There's got to be a solution that we can create now, not later. And it's a parallel solution where I'm like, okay. Anyways, as I was thinking of that, an opportunity came to my table of a bunch of people living in the Caribbean that were putting together a digital bank. And I love the idea that it was going to be focused on sovereign and all that other wonderful stuff. And I'm like, great. And they were going to create some type of crypto coins backed by gold and so forth. I'm like, wonderful. So I'm listening to all this, and they said, hey, we can white label this. So those that don't know what white label means, so if you ever used Gmail or Zoom and you have a business account with Gmail, what you can do on Gmail for your business is you pay Google a little bit more money on a monthly basis. But where it says Gmail on the top, left, whichever way you look at it, you can actually put your company logo there. So if you have a website called survivalchicks.com and you wanted to have mail on there, you can have a subdomain called mail.survivalchicks.com and tell Google Gmail that you want your mail not to go mail.gmail.com, but to have mail.survivalchicks.com.
Right.
And then you'll have your logo there. So when all your employees or volunteers want to check the email, they'll just go to the webmail, and all the front end branding is Survival Chicks.
Right.
Back end is Google, right?
Yes.
That's called white labeling.
Okay.
I know I'm explaining it because maybe some people just don't know. And
yeah, I didn't know that.
So this company that was doing this digital bank said, hey, Global Rethink can create a white label solution for a digital bank to its Canadian, US, UK customers. I'm like, okay. Because not just with Reject 15-minute cities, I have lots of other groups on social media. Groups are over 600,000 plus members. Facebook pages are over 10 million followers, and together, all combined. So has that reach been restricted, shadow banned? Yeah. But not the groups. Groups, I'm able to reach people majority of the time through new things that Facebook has launched. And I'm trying to stay out of the radar of having the group shut down by not posting stuff that's going to trigger, their fact checkers, right?
Like this podcast, probably.
Well, we haven't said anything, against the WHO or the CDC, so I think we should be okay.
You never know.
But you never know, right? But again, we shared the SEC document. That's not really a conspiracy theory, so all that stuff checks out. The rest is just opinion. And I'm like, okay, so anyways, long story, I wanted to summarize. So this company found out how big I could make this when they started looking at my resume, looked at what I've done in the past, and they got scared. They're like, wait a minute, your white label brand is going to become so much bigger than our company. There's nothing stopping you from launching your own. So they said, no. Then they changed their mind overnight, did a 180 and said, we're not going to give you white label. You're going to have to market our brand. I'm like, oh, okay. I was disappointed. And I said, okay. And I was open to it because I still thought the idea was good. I'm like, can I know a little bit more about you, your resume? Because now if I'm going to brand you to all my followers and people that I know, I want to know more about you. Where did you work? You said that you made millions and you have millions. How did you make them? right? And articles written about you in the media, right? All that stuff. I go, just share with me. They got pissed off. They're like, why would you ask that? And the conversation again did a whole different 180, from working together to very sour. And they just scattered. They just took off. And I'm like, that's just weird. So that means they were up to something no good. And when I pressed and asked for hard questions, they didn't want. Now, that didn't mean the idea wasn't something that I shouldn't just leave. I needed to explore it. So I put on my, Inspector Gadget hat, and I'm like, okay, how are banks put together? Like, listen, I have good business sense, but I'm one of those like Scooby-Doo gang, but it's all me. And my alter personalities. Like, I don't have a crew. So Wilmy, Shaga, Fred, that's all me in there, right?
And sometimes you're Scooby.
Oh, Scooby and the cookies, right? Come on. You got it, right? Scooby snacks. As long as I got my cookies, I'll be up till 4 a.m, right? So
Okay.
I'm like, okay, so how do banks work? So I have my friends that I still had somewhat contact with, the investment companies in New York. I'm like, how are banks put together? Like, where's all that money stored? What's the tech? Like, I started asking a lot of questions. They're like, why are you asking all these questions? I'm like, just give me answers. Like, don't ask me questions back after I'm asking, but just give me answers. So I got the answers that I was looking for in a few hours. And then the next day, I ended up reaching out to these companies that actually make and build the tech for all the banks around the world. I'm like, interesting. And then I found out all the licensing that's needed to make the banks operational and, in compliance with regulation. That's, so there's two companies, there's two kind of formats, fintech and fintrack. Fintech is a bank, a big bank. You need a bank charter for that. Fintrack is what is called a money transfer license. So MSB, right? For Canada, different from the US. So you need those to do money transfers. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to do fintech. I'd rather just do fintrack, because that will enable people to open up accounts, transfer money back and forth to each other, make bill payments, all that kind of stuff, right?
So are we talking about kind of the same wavelength as PayPal?
No, like a tangerine.
Like a tangerine. Okay,
Right?
so they
No
can,
physical branches,
yeah.
right? But now you can add reward points. I was going to add crypto to it, but now I'm seriously 90% thinking of scrapping it, and I'll get into that in a second, right? So I'm like, okay, so I found out all the things I needed to within under 72 hours. And then I made calls to these companies, and there was about 12 to 15 companies. Um, most of them replied back because of my resume and what I've done. Otherwise, you don't get a return call if you're not a somebody. That's just how the industry works, right? And then I started having conversations, and after the conversation, some companies were just not ready or competent or different jurisdiction, but I kind of circled it down to 4 companies that were more than capable enough to pull this on the tech side properly, but also had their values aligned with the vision that I had. So that had to be important. And then the cost, I'm like, what's it going to cost? And that was like, holy shit, like that's not going to be cheap, right? It's going to cost, like, it started from 300,000 to 600,000 to 1.5 million. And now we're sitting at under 4 million, right?
And is that just the costs to open up a digital bank in Canada? Or what are the costs to apply to open up a digital bank?
There's no cost to get the license, the FinTrack license from the government,
Okay.
but there are costs for you to be compliant. So just to everyone listening to all this, my background is in business, not banking. But in the last month and a half, I think I've become quite the expert in how banking is run. So when you are onboarded at any bank, you require 2 things, which is AML and KYC verification. And those 2 elements every bank has goes through money laundering lists, terrorist risk lists, and so forth. And you need to be compliant. But so those policies and procedures are internal that every bank has. and they need to be underwritten by a risk assessment company that are in, I guess, in line and compliance with FinTrack. So there's about a dozen of these companies here in Canada. So that's a third party audit company that looks in and writes those policies and procedures for you. And then they have to train your compliance and risk officers that you have to hire with those policies and procedures. And then they have to ask you, how are you onboarding your clients? Directly online? What if somebody wants to call and open an account over the phone? Are the people on the phone trained with all the so those are the things that we have to have in place to have the bank running, right? So you have to pay for that. And that an underwriting cost, is anywhere from 15,000 to 30,000. But then there's annual costs. And you have to have 1 to maybe 5 or more people in your company that are risk and compliance officers that know all of this, that make sure the rest of the divisions and the support system are fully in compliance with that.
Right.
So that's a lot of learning in less than a month.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, okay. For me, I get that. I understand the structure and the logistics, but how can I set it all up that's in compliance, but have as little government interference as possible, but still be in compliance? Right. So that was my focus. And I'm like, okay, so I don't want people to have their accounts shut down just because they were exercising their freedom of right to speech. Right. So how do we exercise that kind of gray area leniency and still keep risk in compliance? I mean, there are people that do money laundering, that do abuse the banking system, right?
Sure.
That they have nothing to do with exercising the freedom of rights. And I think when those people are brought to our attention through the system, corrupt system, we will have that team assess what is being, asked for us to do and, and comply. But do we have that gray area where someone is saying, hey, you ended up exercising your freedom of right. We don't like you because we're the government. We want your account shut down.
Which technically is not a gray area at all, because we have rights guaranteed to us by the Charter and the Constitution and our Bill of Rights, and it is all very clearly
then
laid
Krista
out.
Trudeau will come in and throw in the Emergency Act and create some other legislation out of nowhere, left field, and circumvent that right. Mm-hmm. Those are the shenanigans, the games that the corrupt system will continue to play if the people keep giving that system power.
Yes.
Right. So I agree with you 100%. And so in order we can fight this as much as we want, right? Like their system, if we want to do that, or we can just be smart. So if someone wants to shut your account down, hypothetically, you're Sovereign Bank, and they're like, oh my God, you really are waking people up, right? Or something like that, that it's just baseless, but they find you as a threat. Or say you are Jordan Peterson and they want to shut down Jordan Peterson's account or something like that, right? And he hasn't really done anything wrong.
Right. Or ex-veteran Jeremy McKenzie.
Yeah. So we'll look at something like that and say, okay, and we can add something in our terms and conditions and say we have to give our account holders notice, 72 hours, 5 days, and that notice could be, we got this request from the government. They're asking to shut your account down. We request that you handle your matters. In layman terms, that means move your money from one account to another in Sovereign Bank. So the other account can't be FinTrack. It could be, for example, Sovereign Coins or points or rewards, right? Which has the same value as $1, Canadian or US to 1 points or whatever else. So when someone moves that over, it's out of the government jurisdiction, right? And then there's zero balance left in that account, and we basically tell the government that account is closed, and we can open up a new account.
Well, that's interesting.
Transfer the money back there from the points back into there. So is that illegal? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I think if we have done our due diligence also internally, and we feel, according to the charter, bill of rights and all that kind of stuff, that the person hasn't. And my point is that you have to have some element of a backbone to stand behind and protect your members, your
Right.
account holders. None of the banks, in Canada or the US, exercise their backbone. They bend. They bend the knee every single time. I was asked to bend the knee when I took my company public. I don't do that. I'll let go of billions because if I can do something that can preserve our future or my daughter's future, because as a parent, you think differently. You think with more of a different kind of wisdom than if you were single. You would take careless the risks, right? So yeah, and I think that's the difference between one of the difference among many that I wanted to do with this project, which I'm calling it Sovereign Bank. So after this went out, and I knew after the due diligence, after 72 hours, I'm like, okay, I'm moving ahead with this, and then I had to put together a plan, and that's what I'm going to share with you now.
Okay.
And people can visually see that as well. So this is, I think, what you also have seen in the past. I'll make this a little bit bigger. So this is a mock-up. I'll have more of an idea of how the interface will look. So the security has to be there. The bank will have payments and wallets, so they can transfer money in and out of accounts and make bill payments. When people sign up for an account, they will be mailed a Visa debit card, rather it's a MasterCard debit card or a Visa debit card. We still are negotiating with both companies. We will also have capital markets and an investors hub in the app itself, where people can take advantage of investment opportunities that are going to be presented as we screen and work with other companies that have investment opportunities. This could be hedge funds or funds on their own, pension funds, or different kinds of opportunities that people can invest in, whether those are publicly traded stocks or whatever else. There's going to be capabilities for us to connect with real-time trading platforms and offer those kind of opportunities for our account holders. But the difference is we want our users to make those decisions. We don't want to touch any of the deposit money at all. And yeah, if you got any questions, tell me, but I'm going
But
to
by real-time trading platforms, what do you mean?
you were talking trading platforms like Bloomberg and many others. They are connected,
Like
and
Questrade?
yeah, those as well. We just have to
Okay.
decide which one we want to work with. And when we work with that kind of platform, we're going off their licensing. So they're sub leasing their licensing to us. And with the ledgers, so all these, when you see here history, this history will basically on the back end is a ledger of what's happening, how you're spending. Transfers give you the payment options of doing e-transfers, EFT, electronic funds transfers. And if you're transferring to another bank, you can do that as well. But if another person also is a sovereign bank account holder and they're in Russia or Middle East, and you're in Canada, you can transfer funds from your sovereign bank account to their sovereign bank account instantly. But if you're doing it to another bank outside, it's usually a few hours, or for the e-transfers, it could be 30 minutes, but it could be also as real-time instant, depending on geographic locations, but no later than next day. So all those options are like a traditional bank, but we want to make it a little bit more cutting edge. We want to make it more beautiful, but more transparent. And we want to be different than the traditional banks. So if we look at, and also the growth, the signups in less than a month have been huge. Over 160,000 people signing up to get early access to when the bank is going to be launched. And that word of mouth is spreading. So this is the big part. Traditional banks, they focus on the third item, which is fractional reserve banking. So that means that when you deposit something in their bank, whether it's cash or, they access that deposit instantly when they start investing in it. They don't ask you where they're investing in it, but that is what puts traditional banks at risk, because sometimes when they're using that money to buy more loans or whatever else, they're exposing themselves to more and more risk. So when I look at that model, business model, I'm like, that's got to be the most dumbest business model ever. Because the way that you're going to survive through that business model is you're going to constantly keep charging your account holders more and more interest, more and more higher fees. So you're going to bleed them to death, and continually you thrive on their being more in debt. So the more in debt your account holders are, the more you keep your head above water. I'm like, that business plan is put together by someone that knows nothing about finance or business, or most importantly, community, right? So me thinking with confidence in my head and my ego being, giving myself a pat on the back, going, you got this, Ray, you got this, right? So I'm like, what if we did that reverse? What if we don't touch people's deposits and give them the opportunity to insure their deposits? Not only the $100,000 that the CDIC in Canada and the FDIC in the US, basically insure, but let's give them more the option to insure all of it through a different insurance company that they can pay a monthly premium on. But most importantly, we're not touching that deposit. And if we're not touching those deposits and investing, there's no risk. We are not exposed at all. So, but if you decide to, as an account holder, invest on your own accord in the investment opportunities through, a platform like Bloomberg that we can integrate with, or any other trading X platform, and you can make some gains or you can lose some money, but those risks are on your own accord. The bank is not responsible, but the bank could be the middleman facilitating those transactions. So again, the philosophy back for me is I'd like to keep our account holders out of debt as much as possible, not paying heavy interest or fees like they do in traditional banks. And our motto is that if you are more financially secure, then you're spending that money back into the community. And the more the community is thriving, the more we are overall benefiting, because then more money is used back at the bank. It's a beautiful cycle of business flow that people really haven't seen. So give me your thoughts. I'll stop. I know I'm saying a lot of stuff right now.
My thoughts are that this is pretty awesome. Tell us why you call it Baank with 2 A's.
I can't do it with 1 A because it would be fintech regulations and securities coming down my neck and going, I can't call it a bank, because you need to have a particular license to call it a bank.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to add another A, and that is actually numerology wise and spiritually has a different meaning and significance. So it has nothing to do with bank. But I'm like, interesting. I go, it's kind of like it can have another benefit to what we're trying to do. So I just thought we're double rated instead of single rated. I don't know, just maybe we can add a triple A and go triple rated, right? So that was it. And I know people have asked that would I get heat? So far, I've given the same explanation to FinTrack and everybody else, and there's been no issues, especially when I've given that explanation. If down the road we do change the name, maybe do, but I think it's kind of cool, right? I mean, if we're doing a different kind of bank and the bank is spelled different, it kind of stands out like a sore thumb. Hey, don't bank at a bank at a bank. I don't know. You got to have fun with it. You got to play with it, because I think it could be a fun marketing thing that we can do as well. And people need that kind of, good humor. So imagine, for me, my vision was, imagine a bank that has a vested interest in keeping you out of debt, keeping you, financially growing, rewarding you.
I can't even imagine it.
Right. I know, but I had a vision of that. So I'm like, let's make it happen. So on the loans and the mortgages side, yeah, we will give loans. We want to structure, I guess, a screening process that's outside of TransUnion and Equifax, because I don't feel that people were treated fairly through those screening processes, and they were validated or judged unfairly. And I think people need second chances, third chances, especially if we're creating a system like sovereign bank that's complete, in a lot of ways opposite from the traditional banks. Then we should also be thinking differently in terms of providing fair opportunities to our members to thrive in their entrepreneurial ventures or their local community projects. Because if the bank's not going to be there for them, then, then what's the point of creating sovereign bank? From my perspective. And the mortgages, just for time being, while the mortgages are still, essential and needed, and we need to offer them until a better strategy and a plan is created, which I'm working on, because I'm always scheming and working on solutions that are so revolutionary and pioneering that they change the whole game. But until we get to that stage, mortgages, traditional banks charge you an arm and a leg of interest right in the beginning of your mortgage. You never pay anything, hardly anything to principal until 5 years, 10 years down the road. So we would structure it completely different, that right from the bat, from the first payment, majority of your payment is going to principal.
Wow, that's completely, right? That's phenomenal. That's ridiculous.
So there's another strategy and opportunity I know from a lot of experts talking, and we've seen, so I start sovereign bank plan and strategy, 2 weeks into February and, in March. And then next thing I've had like maybe a few conversations, massive interest and, positivity. And then boom, in the US, Silicon Valley Bank crashes, Signature Bank crashes overnight without notice. And I'm like, huh. And they're like, this is great. They're like, why didn't you start this sooner? I'm like, there's a timing for everything. And I don't think people were ready. Even if I started it, there needs to be a tsunami happening. And while that's happening, then it makes sense for me to have a lifeboat.
Right.
But what's the point of me creating a lifeboat in ocean when there's no threat?
Absolutely.
Right. It's sad that that has to happen in this way.
Well, it's a reflection, society as the individual, generally speaking. Now, there's some that are going to go against the norm, but generally speaking, a person or society must hit rock bottom, some form of rock bottom, in order for them to create solutions to have things done in a better way. So if things are working, you're not going to change it unless they're not working anymore.
It's only the old saying, it's only at the precipice that we change, right?
Yeah. And right now, everybody's seeing that not everybody, some people are seeing that there is a threat with whether they think it's the digital ID or a market crash coming, a real estate crash. There's some concerns.
Yep. So some updates that I want to make, that I want to mention on this. I haven't had a chance to update the deck. As I mentioned to you, I will this weekend. So we're not doing Web3. Okay. Web3 is a platform that most cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies are built on, like NFTs and so forth, or neobanks, Neo Financial, many other banks, or Coho and so forth. The reason we don't want to do that, because the last 2 weeks, and especially last week, the Wall Street Journal came out with an article that the government is now considering that cryptocurrency is a threat to national security.
Right.
And the week before that, they came hard, the SEC, against Coinbase, which is Web3 cryptocurrency, and they started suing it. So because of the digital, central digital banking system that they want to initiate, not just in Canada, the US, and around the world, they need cryptocurrency to crash. So I don't want to be in that mess. And so what we're going to do is create sovereign points or sovereign rewards. So think of it as the same thing as air miles. So if there is a value to it that people can use, because what is the value to a dollar? Because if the dollar crashes, who determines the value? Because right now what's happening, and I think you probably already know this, Russia, China, India, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, and I think 15, 19, or 20 different countries have signed up to either India is going to do their own currency, and they're rejecting the US currency.
Yes, we've been hearing about this on podcasts and whatnot
Yeah.
for
So
a little
that's
while
not
now.
a conspiracy theory.
No.
It's happening, and
Yeah.
a lot of it has already happened.
And
So
we're very closely tied as Canadians to the US in all the
well,
ways.
we're married to the hip. We're joined to the hip.
Hmm.
So when the US dollar crashes, Canada's going to crash.
Hmm.
Um, and so, I guess this is either a plan or whatever it is. It's something that we have to be, when we're creating this, be mindful of. So we don't want to be creating on a Web3 and be pulled in down, pull the rug with cryptocurrencies and all that mess. Let's build on a different infrastructure. So we're on the back end going to be going on a system that's going to be powered by Oracle Enterprise, which is the most secure servers. Very, very expensive, 3 to 5 times more expensive, but the speed in which transactions are processed and the security of that is unmatched by anyone. Even Amazon, Google Cloud servers cannot match Oracle Enterprise servers. So we want to be secure and we want to do things right. However, with that change, our launch date gets pushed from June to a few months down the road. So probably September, latest October. And there's two reasons for that. We want it done right, but we also need time to train all of our new hires to onboard the personal accounts, the business accounts. Because let me go to the next slide. So this is just some of the bank accounts that you'll be able to cryptos out. The bottom two lines are all crypto. We're not going to be doing that. So any other bank account, and if people have mentioned this, I didn't, just because I'm not showing a logo of a credit union or another bank, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to transfer your funds from that bank into Sovereign Bank.
Okay.
You're going to be able to do that. I just didn't have time to populate every credit union on here. So every credit union, every fintech bank in Canada, US, around the world, you can, basically transfer your funds from there into Sovereign Bank when we're up.
Okay. Okay.
Right. And I mentioned here the KYC and the AML checks are going to be in place. And our open APIs is what's going to be the beautiful thing about it. Is we're going to be able to be so robust with open APIs because we're going to be able to create new innovations, new methods to keeping and providing solutions to our community, because this is very community based and community focused. So I just wanted to touch base on that really quick. Hiring that risk, legal, I'm on it. I have 200 plus resumes just for an HR director.
Oh,
So I have a lot of things on my table. You can't even imagine.
yes.
So there's, I don't know if I want to share too much stuff on here, but so account fees. There's monthly account fees from youth accounts. Like parents want to open up accounts for their kids, so they're gonna have that opportunity. Then they want to also open up multiple accounts. So the revenue from that is going to be more than enough to sustain the operations, the staff, the customer service. So we're never, right off the bat, we're going to be profitable. Absolutely.
Okay. And there is a cost to opening an account, like an initial cost?
Well, just like how you not up front, but you'll be paying that. I know. I think when I remember opening up an account with Royal Bank or any other bank traditionally, whether it's $5 a month or whatever, they do charge the first day when you open an account.
Okay. So
And
if I
then
wanted to open an account, what would my initial fee be?
you would, as a personal account, you would have options. Basic one would be $10. Then you have, I think, after that, it's $14 and $19. The higher you go, we're tiering it in terms of rewards. So
Okay.
you're also going to be having sovereign coin awards. So the higher you go, look at it as air miles.
Right.
We want to be able to use these rewards and points also for businesses that open up business accounts as a means of exchange. Because if the dollar collapses, we're trying to create a system of commerce that we can use to buy goods and services back and forth.
Right.
So even if you were to do barter, but even when you're doing bartering, you need a ledger of accounts of how much are you bartering back and forth, right? So at least in this way, through rewards and points, you have a ledger of what's going back and forth.
Okay.
Without that, it becomes like very confusing to keep a notepad and saying, by the way, I owe you, or giving people IOU notes with a heart and a smiley face. Like this is a more professional, more organized structure to do things. But I think I'm just constantly thinking and looking ahead, and also keeping my finger on the pulse of what's happening. I know what their plans are, but I'm creating solutions on, if this goes down, this goes down. I have not only a plan B, C, or D, I'm looking at E and F. So I have to. I think this is, to me, it's challenging, but it's also needed. And as this is happening, the one journey that people will need to go through, just like they went through the pandemic, is this attachment with money. And they have to kind of understand that, yes, you need money to do a lot of these other things, but don't be so attached. So we could be also in a position, our bank, we can create a fund. That fund could have $100 million or $100 billion, depending on how fast we're growing. But now imagine this, which I believe it's going to happen soon. The housing market crashes, which I believe is right around the corner.
Yeah.
That the mortgages are going to crash, right? In defaults. And so that means so many people are like, what do I do? I'm going to lose my house.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we came along and we bought all those houses, but now the housing market is lower, right?
Crash price.
Right. Crash price. And now those people that lost their houses come back to us and say, can we get a mortgage? But we now give them a mortgage in a way that they're paying to principal so they can get back into their house.
Right.
But now they're going to have a battle with their traditional bank saying, you owe us, this, and you went default.
Yes.
And there could be solutions, sovereign solutions, where if we create direct democracy in a community, people can just say, sure, come to our community council and we can have a hearing. I'm not going into your courts. But we're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we can, as a community, get there, because this is about every individual having this belief that they are here to govern themselves, not have the government govern them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take that power away from, an establishment like the government, then you start thinking, how do we then create our own thriving, harmony kind of like community?
Yeah.
So we don't need to all get along with everything. There are people that are very spiritual. There are people that are very Christian based on different religions. You can all be great, but there are a lot of common denominators that we can resonate on.
Yes.
And get along. And let's just have those common denominators as principles of creating that direct democracy, or sovereign direct democracy, right?
Wow.
So I think those conversations need to happen. And there should be no ego. There should be love. There should be this whole, we're here for a reason. We didn't come here and take birth to be validated and identified. So why don't we ask those questions and come together from a place of love, not judgment, and really look at solutions. And
I like solutions.
Let's create. And people are like, this is like, too much to handle. I'm like, because you've been spoiled all your life. This is not too much to handle. You've been spoiled and spoon-fed and pampered because that's what you do as a slave. So when you stop being a slave to the system,
you got to do all your own shit.
Right.
You got to do all your own shit.
Be responsible, right? Like, handle your load.
Be responsible for yourself. Yeah, be accountable. Yeah. So that means that all the things that I need, I really have to have a hand in getting it, doing it, taking care of it.
Yeah, I'll just stop this sharing this. I'll share it in a sec. Yeah, 100%. All that stuff needs to happen. There's actually, a study. Have you heard of McKinsey Financial or McKinsey Group? McKinsey, it's a big insurance company, investment company, McKinsey, and anybody can Google them. They always have done a lot of these think tank studies. that are so powerful, like in terms of consumer habits, psychographic patterns, as different communities arising, immigration rates. It's very thought out by experts, like dozens of experts from different universities all over, the country and around the world, and they do these studies to just give a forecast and an outlook of how we are growing, the potential of growth, potential of risk, potential of whatever, but they have no agenda. They're just looking at metrics, data, and mindset, and they're just creating, based on that, these scenarios. So what governments would do is take these studies, think tank studies, and go, so this is an opportunity that, a market is, say immigration is going in this particular direction and they can thrive. Well, we don't want them thriving in that direction. So we're going to hijack this scenario and we're going to create some government initiatives and totally end up, I guess, rewiring their flow of framework that was supposed to be organically growing, but we're going to end up, steering it in this direction. So we have more control. So that's what ends up happening with these think tank studies. They get hijacked and they get repackaged. And now that repackaging is much more sinister than the actual, original packaging, which was meant to be more thriving and authentic. So the reason I'm saying that is there was an actual study done on what we are worth, as individuals, and the value to that, and that we can take that value, buy insurance on it, and that insurance ends up enabling us to bankroll a car, a house, a business. And we're not in debt if we're banking on ourselves. The only challenge is we have to live up to our potential. Like you said, right? Don't be lazy. If you be lazy, you're not living up to your potential and you can't be rewarded with those wonderful opportunities.
Do the work.
Do the work and you got it. So you'll never starve if you just show up for yourself. If you show up for your life, that you're alive, if you open your eyes and you just show up, you'll be okay. So imagine a framework of society built on that.
I love it. And also I feel like in order to show up and, be present and be ready and do the work, I feel like a person has to feel a certain amount of good within themselves. They have to feel emotionally or physically 100%. Good. If I'm bombarded physically, I'm gonna slow down. And if my mind's not in the right place, if I am depressed or whatever, I'm not gonna want to do anything.
You know why that is? Because we've been conditioned to live within a particular purpose. And that purpose gets repackaged and it's repackaged back to its authentic essence. Now purpose is what will define your way of, are you going to intake that toxic energy that really just messes you up and throws you off balance, or you redefined that purpose of why you're here, why you're waking up, why you're doing anything. When that gets, I guess, redefined or transformed, whatever word you want to call it, that changes everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally, like, that's a shift of consciousness that we all been thinking about, but we really haven't seen it play out in the way that we hope it should. But it's there. It's possible.
I am really optimistic for the future, not the very near future, but the future after that. I think that
we have to
everything.
Go through that. We can't get to that until
yes. I
think
that we
pain,
have
without
to.
pain, we can't. There's no
right. It took
I don't
me a
work
while
out,
to.
But even if I, build muscle without the pain in the biceps,
It took me a while to understand like all of it and how it fits in and why we need some darkness in order for the light to come in and all of the things. But I really am hopeful. I really see a better picture at the end. So it's not just that we're going to go through some tough times, because I really, truly do believe that we will. We haven't seen anything yet, in my opinion, but that's okay. And we're going to lose some people along the way, and we're going to lose systems along the way, and we're going to lose our way of lives along the way. Most probably. However, after that, what we rebuild from it and who we become from it and, you know, what it looks like after, I think is going to be so nice.
Oh, it's going to be amazing.
Mhm.
Right now, to some people, that's a fiction. And again, I think the intelligence part is that while we're going through this journey and you're going through this path, just understand that you imagine going through a flea market, right? Here's your road, and on the side, there's a whole bunch of shops of perspectives. And as you're going through there, people are going to be like, hey, you want a bacon? Hey, you want an earring? All these perspectives are meant to stop you from going on your path, right? But you can stop and take a look at anything you want, but understand, none of those things are validating you. You don't need any of that, right? They're just interesting experiences. Don't get attached to them. The moment you do, you lose your path. You're off your
Interesting
path. You're off your track.
experiences. Well, and I think that that's the thing that probably makes you and I capable of going through this is that we have adaptability, right? So if things change, it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And change is, you need it as cliche as it sounds, that you need to be out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? In that same analogy, when you are in your comfort zone, you may not even want to stop and look at and have a conversation with anybody that's trying to sell you something. But going out and trying to do that is you stepping out of your comfort zone. But just remember that whatever they're trying to sell you, just don't believe everything that you hear. Have that ability of discernment to just and be mindful of
discernment,
right?
have discernment,
decode the stuff that's being thrown at you, right? And that is an energy pain, right? I don't want to say mental pain, but it's mental is energy. So it's, and people say, oh my God, my brain hurts thinking like that. I'm like, the brain doesn't feel pain, and pain is a frame of mind. Fear doesn't exist. It's created by the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and yeah, so I think a lot of these things will just, with the bank, the bank wanted to do when it's up and running is it wanted to really fuel community initiatives, like fuel private hospitals. We know how horrible the healthcare system is, but especially with digital ID, if you're going into the central banking system, the CBDC system, you're going to require digital ID. Without digital ID, you can't go to the government hospital and get healthcare. You won't be able to hold a bank account.
It's a disaster.
It's a disaster. So obviously I'm aware of that, mess. And while the bank is coming up, I'm also creating an initiative this weekend, a project, which is going to be private hospitals, which the community will fund. And we need to build them. We need to have them. And let's hire back those nurses that were let go from doing the job. Let's hire back those doctors that were trying to do the right thing. Let's bring in even so many more professionals that are on the other side of the spectrum that want to move over but don't have where's the solution, right? This ends up being the solution. And so that would be the hospital side, where we can do all the wonderful surgeries so the backlog is not killing people. And even before next year comes around, so that's one project. The other project is, so that's a hospital one. The other project is health care. When I say health care, I'm talking about alternative healing. I'm talking about care capabilities and projects in the community that help seniors, that help our youth, that help with mental health, right? A lot of those programs are going to be so different and unique, but they're there for a very specific reason, right? They're there to do something to help anyone going through whatever it is. So if you're going through mental health, there's so many different layers of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
that our current system is incapable of addressing.
The part that pisses me off is them introducing by next year MAID. You feel sad, you feel down, you want to kill yourself, just walk into a pharmacy, we'll write you a prescription, go home, and you're done. Exit, get the hell out of here. That pisses me off, and I control that vibration and anger because I don't want to give it that energy. And I just like, you know what? You guys are going to do that. Watch me, watch what I'm going to do now. I'm going
Yeah.
to create a whole parallel system with all the power and love that I'm going to get from people, which I'm getting so much. And I'm going to build, it's like you build it, they will come. I'm
Yeah.
building.
That's right. I just feel like stuff like Made, I don't get overly upset over it because it's insane. Okay. So the level of crazy, I just go, oh, I can't even respond to
It's
that. It's
insane, but
just
so
so
was the pandemic
crazy. Yes. And so just recently in Parliament, one of the NDP was discussing on how we should be offended about fat shaming because a new movie just came out and they were wearing fat suits because the actor didn't gain that weight themselves. They put on a suit to replicate the story that they were talking about telling. And so his whole thing was that we should start, I believe he was saying we should start fining people and we should start like being very offended over, the fat community being talked about in a certain way. And I'm just like,
don't
okay,
even give their
I
circus any
I
energy.
can't, that's the thing. But I think all of that helps other people to go, wait, what? That's crazy. So it brings the craziness to the light. So I'm all about it.
Yeah,
Bring the
yeah.
crazy to the light. Let's
It
look
helps
at it
us.
all. Show us your colors, friends.
It's I gave a funny analogy a month back, and I said, I look at the elites, I look at the corrupt government, the corrupt officials as spoiled little kids. So imagine us, all of us, living in a nice house, and we're all in the kitchen, sharing and cooking wonderful stuff that we're gonna enjoy, right? But we know we have these little brats, right? That they're not our kids, but maybe they're the neighbor kids, but they're in their house for some reason, right?
Thank God they're not our kids.
Yeah, they're not our kids. And we as parents, we know how they're gonna, like rugrats, run through and create mayhem. So we can see that coming because we have that intellect. So we can create a little gate in the kitchen that they can't enter through, and we can create these kind of blockades like the 15-minute cities that they're doing. But they're like, well, we can move freely wherever we want, but we can restrict your movement, right? So and if they do, go out of control, we just go to your room. And if they violate that, we'd be like, we take away privileges. I think people forgot how to be parents. People forgot that we have the power. People forgot
Absolutely.
that, if the little rugrats decided to, get together more rugrats and put on a uniform and a badge, they're still kids, spoiled little kids with batons trying to,
That I feel is a reflection of many of the parents today, not all of them, but many of the parents today, they do what their child, they go along with whatever it is that's going on from the child.
I think talking about parents, I think a lot of parents shouldn't have kids because they still are not loving themselves. They don't know yet who they are. And when you don't love yourself and you don't know who you are, how are you supposed to pass that love on to your child? Because what you're going to do is you're going to put the kid in front of an iPad or a television and make the kid play games or watch cartoons. That is their connection to parenting, not, unfortunately.
And we all came from someone that had some stuff for themselves that was broken in some way, and so we have to repair that for ourselves. And if we don't, we're just passing that along to the children, or worse.
Totally. Or worse. Totally. Totally. And I think that there's a lot of healing. This that
has to happen.
Needed, that has to happen. Then that's what this project for healthcare is going to be about, creating all these modules within the project of, whether it's healing, whether it's transformation, whether it's body alignment, whether it's alternative healing, all of that programs will be in there. And I want this overall project to fund it all.
Crazy, man. It's a really ambitious, very
who else is doing it at this scale?
Nobody's doing it.
It has to be done. It's not about, oh shit, I'm doing it. And I don't give a shit about. Only reason I'm going to start going out and speaking is because people need to hear a plan, a plan of action, which is why I'm on this, interview with you in this podcast, because this, my tongue is tied. These kinds of conversations and the way that I'm articulating need to be heard, because I haven't heard anybody else speak like the way that I'm
No.
presenting myself over the last 3 years.
And you're right about the timing. We're in that zone right now. My partner and I have been discussing what we are going to do with our financial institutions, for example, and how we are going to proceed for now. So we've devised a plan. We're still planning it out. We're still working on it, but we understand that if we do nothing, TD is going to happen to us like it did with everybody else. And we're just going to be roped in, and we're going to have digital ID next thing you know, or we're going to lose our bank cards, and then we're going to have bigger things to think about. So,
speaking of that, people have been asking since the banks crashed, what do I do with my money raised and so forth? And I didn't have a solution immediately when the banks crashed, sovereign banks, SVB, Signature Bank, and many of those. But I did, after a few days of thinking, with a few of my friends and people that are advising me, we came up with a plan of, wait a minute, right now we're offering pre-registration to Sovereign Bank. So, why not offer a pre-membership? And that membership has, benefits like you get shares and you become the founding member. Private memberships, there's nothing illegal about them. The difference is that this is not, I think after the truckers convoy, if you ever wanted to raise money for Sarah, your best friend, hypothetically, who's doing something good, that would be considered crowdfunding, right? And there was no issues of doing that before the truckers convoy.
Right.
But after that, they passed a lot of bylaws and legislation to prevent that. So if I ever wanted to raise money, they're like, oh, you can't. They don't want you or anybody else raising money. So they just clamp down on it. But if I own and operate all of my projects and I'm not giving, so instead of me helping out Sarah, whatever Sarah's trying to do, I'm like, Sarah, I'm going to buy your idea. I own it now. Right.
Okay.
But now that I bought it, I'm making you president and CEO.
Okay.
But now it's a workaround, but I own and operate that project. So I'm not, but if I didn't do that, and I'm sending money to third-party companies, that would be considered crowdsourcing. So everything that UBSBC, which is a federally incorporated company, and Sovereign Bank Incorporated, is also a Canadian federally incorporated company, are owned by me, that were created last month. I want to just mention something about incorporation, because this comes up a lot with people that are trying to really wake up into sovereignty, natural law, common law. They're like, wait a minute, why are you creating a corporation in a corrupt system to do something, that you're trying to do, which is help people? Listen, I get where you're coming from, to those that have that kind of question. But if you want to create private membership club or whatever else, how are you going to go open up a bank account? Are you going to ask people to give you money personally? Have you ever managed millions of dollars? Have you ever done a structure or logistics plan for it? I have that experience. I have the track record, which I've shown in the beginning with the SEC document. And I can show other websites that I own, that I run and operate, including the Facebook pages, which have millions of followers, all verified as well. And what does verification really mean these days, right? It's just BS now. So this is about being in a parallel system, right? It's about, yes, we need to create a corporation because that system is still active and thriving. And until we completely move over from a corrupt system into this system, there needs to be some, kind of things we have to do.
There needs to be a bridge.
A bridge. Good word. So it's, but that doesn't mean when we're creating the bridge, look at our methodology, look at our vision, look at our intentions behind what we're trying to create in this parallel system, and focus on that instead of the tiny little words. Because if you keep focusing on these tiny little words and make them to mean something that they're not, You're going down a rabbit hole that you don't really need to be on. You can, but you're just creating a whole bunch of matrix over and over in your head. And there's nothing shady, weird going on. And people quickly jump to the conclusion, oh, this looks like a scam. Okay, then from your perspective, then it is. Then it always will be a scam,
Mhm.
right? But or someone could say, hey, Ray, you can stand to make a lot of money. Yeah, if this takes off, absolutely.
Mhm.
Right? Do you see anybody else working, 20 hours a day, 18 hours a day, nonstop for the last couple of months? No. Right? Am I making anything right now? No. Have I put everything that I have saved up that I was making in money into this? Yep. So if that doesn't work, yeah, I'm on the street. That's how much I'm willing to, that's what I'm risking to it because I believe in it. So if this works, this is what, we what I call fair opportunity. So if I'm going to be rewarded from it, all that money, I'm pushing it right back into the community. But if there's another person in the community, rather that's you or someone else that has that idea, there should be a bank like Sovereign Bank and also these other initiatives that I'm trying to create that should be there to give them that fair opportunity so they can thrive. It shouldn't be given to woke movements like
Mm.
the Silicon Valley did, giving 80 million or 100 million to the Black Lives Matter or other movements. I'm just like, that's not fair opportunity. How does the community thrive when you have that kind of singularity taking place?
Mhm.
That kind of so I don't know, that doesn't resonate with me. But back to what I said in terms of community initiatives, yeah, so people started saying, well, what do I do? I'm like, so with the membership, people are basically saying, well, I have my RSPs, I have my GICs, can I cash them? I'm like, you can do whatever you want. If you're not comfortable with your money in the traditional banks, don't keep it there. They're like, well, what can I do? I'm like, well, you can buy shares. Well, you're buying shares by buying a membership. Then the membership could be $500 or it could be a couple of $1,000. But the company, my companies, we've taken insurance on our assets. So if we go belly up, the assets are insured,
Okay. So
right?
if I were to buy a membership today, what's the lowest buy-in?
$100.
Okay. $100 to be a member.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what are the benefits for that? So this is
Yeah.
so one person there's a part there's I think there's a term prospectus or something like that. They're like, do I have that? Private companies don't need that because we're not offering these shares to be traded, on the stock exchange.
Okay.
And also a private company just needs approval from the board, the director, to offer its shares to, members and employees. And we're offering both. The only thing that needs to happen to initiate that is an approval from a director, which is me. So if I am giving that approval, it does not require any oversight from the Securities Exchange Commission or anything else because this has nothing to do with us trading these shares on the public stock exchange.
Okay.
So this is just a governing of our oneself, and all this information is available to be Googled on the internet that people can kind of do themselves.
Okay.
Right. So that's that confusion that happens quite a bit. So those questions come up. And what else do people question?
So like when the bank opens
Yeah.
and let's say I have purchased a membership and now I have a bank account, what is the like benefit of my membership as opposed to somebody who comes in and just has a bank account?
Okay, so good question. I was going to get to that. So you say you bought 100 shares
Yeah.
as an example. So you open your bank account, you'll see, in your investment hub, you have 100 shares of Sovereign Bank. So after the bank is set up, we are going to be auditing our financials by Grant Thornton every single day. And after about a month and a half, we are going to be our evaluated. So our financials then get evaluated. Like, what is your company valued at? And we're also going to be talking to a lot of investment companies and firms and showing those audit financials to them. And what they look at is how exposed are we? How much of a risk is our bank compared to traditional banks? And because I mentioned earlier, we're not planning on doing any fractional reserve banking or lending. we're not touching people's deposits. So we're going to be very secure. We're going to be very low risk. So when they see that and they see our balance sheet deposits, say we have the first month, 1 million members sign up and they have an average deposit of under 10,000 or whatever else, right? Or more. We're looking at 10 billion to 50 billion in capital deposits that we're not leveraging. So if we're not leveraging it, that means we're not taking that money and loaning it out anywhere and what if we don't get that money back? That means that's what puts you, any institution, any business at risk. So if we're not doing that, we become a very valuable company. And then our evaluation of the share, so your 100 shares are worth $100, but that's $1 per share. But if that valuation goes to $5, $10, so you just take those shares and times it by $10 valuation. So now you can trade those privately within the investors hub in Sovereign Bank.
Okay.
So you can sell 10 shares, and if the 10 times, 10 is, 100.
Yeah.
Then you can keep 90.
Right.
So now you made your investment and now you're keeping the rest, and if the price keeps going higher.
And you made your money back. Yeah.
It made your money back. So that's the kind of return that you can get that in the times that we're in. And it's interesting because it's an opportunity like being a founding member of Apple. Like before, it was launched to public, having private shares before even Apple goes, we're not planning on going public. First of all, unless the SEC changes their entire rules and regulations to be friendly to companies like ourselves, which I don't think they're going to. But if that happens, we will go public. But if not, we're going to remain private, which could be a very, very, also very profitable, very good company. So imagine being part of a founding member of Apple and having shares, and watching those shares mature and the valuation grow. You don't get those opportunities because once the share price goes high, you can't go and buy them back at $1. So what that means also is, say you have $200,000 say you have $100,000 in your checking, another $100,000 in your investments in your traditional bank and GICs. So that's $300,000 spread by $100,000 each. According to CDIC, they insure each account by $100,000.
Right.
But let's assume that you have an extra $100,000 in each of those accounts. So that's 2, 4, 6. So now you have an extra $300,000 that's not going to be insured. So if the banks fail, now it's not a matter of if, they are going to. When they fail, when they crash, nobody's going to get any notice. Right? Investments are not insured.
No.
So the way the government, I believe, is going to come back and say, out of the $300,000 that is insured, we're now bringing back the banks. We're going to give you that $300,000 that's insured. You're going to lose the $300,000 that we're not insuring. Or maybe they might say, we are going to give you the extra $300,000, but they're going to end up creating and launching the central banking system, the digital banking system, and say, you need to come and create an account in our new system with a new digital ID. And once you're initiated, just the same thing. You want to travel, you got to be vaccinated. You got to have your Vax Pass. That whole process is going to happen through the financial, in the financial system.
With the digital ID.
Then that's where people are going to get screwed.
Yeah.
So now if you took shares, say you took $300,000 in access of those value that is not insured, you took sovereign membership, you bought a membership for that. Well, you're going to have that in your bank account when the bank is launched. So that doesn't go to Never Never Land. So that's the backup plan. That's a solution that we're providing. And with that solution, we get to create the bank, but also create a lot of that, use that capital to create all these community initiatives that people so badly need. The hospitals, the healthcare initiatives, and the private education schools. You know how important that is for parents to not send their kids to government schools and be subjected to all the nonsense that they are. If you notice, I'm not saying those key words to be flagged. So I'm going to remain anonymous that way, but people get, what I mean.
Yeah.
Because it's smart. And I think that if that option was available, so if people in a community are wanting to create a private Christian school, great. If there's a lot of Christians in a particular community that want that, Sovereign Bank, the project and our USBC project can fund it. And where people just want to create a different school it's called Sovereign School. I want to let the community decide. I just want to be here to provide solutions and fair opportunities, and also the ability that people can thrive in a healthy way, mentally, physically, and spiritually, so that we're not stuck in this tyranny and authoritarian. And that's a horrible way to live.
Yeah.
So
another question, if it's an online bank and I want to go and retrieve some cash, how would I do that?
you get a Visa debit, or which I said earlier. So when you sign up, you'll get a Visa debit or MasterCard debit card. But I also know and heard that they're moving those ATM machines.
Right.
So here's a question back to you. So if the dollar is going to crash and the currency is not going to have value of the $20 Queen bill, what's good cash? I've seen so many groups in cash. You got to hold on to the cash. I'm like,
I have no idea the answer.
whose cash are you holding on to? I'm not hating on those people. I'm like, you're holding on to a $20 bill of a queen who's completely on that side. I think the new king, when he gets his inauguration, is like this with WEF. You know where that is going to end up going. So my point is, we need a solution, currency solution, and their corrupt cash is not the solution.
Right.
Right. So I'm not saying, I'm not a fan of digital, as long as if we can create, because what isn't that we're doing that's digital? Our phones are digital. Anything that we're doing so much digital already.
Yeah.
Even on Facebook, all the nonstop addicted posting is all digital. But I get where people are saying that they don't want to be monitored to the degree that they're going to get punished on what they're going to do.
Right.
That's something none of my projects are going to have. Right. So yeah, there's a check when you open up an account, a checking process. Are you a real person? So you have to upload your driver's license or your passport. That's about it. Other than that,
Right.
We're not monitoring you. We're not going to follow you. We're not going to be punishing you or any. I have no desire for any of that stuff.
That's good.
The government does.
That's good.
Yeah, now I've said it on record, so you can hold me to it.
That's great. Recorded,
and it's on record. No, I'll stand
be
by.
Like, remember a little video?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's needed. I think the people that I'm bringing close, I'm like, listen, I don't have all the answers. And if I slip up anywhere, you have full authority. I'm telling you right now to ask me tough questions, hold me accountable. Absolutely.
Yeah, we gotta be able to ask the questions, and you got to be able to answer them, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if I can't, see, I look at it this. I know it's only been a month and 1 week since I came up with this, and in that period, I've done so much, right? As I've shown you already, and I've talked about it. I don't know a single person on this planet that's been able to do a project, especially financially related fintech, this fast. So if I don't have the answers that you're looking for, do me a favor and cut me some slack. I'm working on it. I'm working on it, and I'm always thinking. And also, this project needs a lot of memberships right now. So I'll share one thing right now with you. So when people go to, no, not that one. Yeah, this one. So when people go to Sovereign Bank, which is sovereignbank.com, they can sign up to receive updates. The business links, I haven't uploaded content on there because I'm still fine tuning what the personal account tiers are going to be looking like, what the business account tiers are going to be looking like. So that's about a week away before I put that information up, that this is what the fees are going to be and so forth. But the contact is working, the about us is working. But if you want to take a membership, just scroll down here and you'll see this link, become a founding member. So when you click on this, you'll be directed to our holding company, which is the UBSBC for the Sovereign Project. And here is information about the project, the same slide that you're seeing here. You can, simply scan through that, and then you'll see become a member now. And when you click on this little button, this option will pop up showing you the member benefits. And then from here, you can just select which membership you want. And if you want to invest and be a member with over 50,000, just email us at membership@ubsbc, and we can help you move the money more than 50K over. So say you took 1,500, you hit purchase membership, it'll take you to the checkout page. I had something else in my cart. The processing fees are fees that we are paying for, bank transfers and also e-transfers. And if you go credit card, there'll be a different processing fee that shows up. I don't like those, but they need to be paid. And that's the
Wow,
unfortunate part.
those are big fees.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's because we're adding these two things. Credit cards are 3.9 or 3% plus something else. The processing fees are, some of the groups have partnerships to, for coupons and everything else and so forth. If I took out whatever benefits that the other groups are getting from here, then I'm eating into.
Yeah, of course.
So I can't do that. I mean, and everything else, the person that's buying the investment or the membership has to pay for that, unfortunately. But I plan on all these extra processing fees. I do have a plan of action of offering more rewards equal to that value back to our shareholders.
Great.
So that's it. So when you do that and you check out, you'll get an email instantly. And once the funds are released, within 72 hours to 7 days, if it's e-transfer, it's instant, but within 72 hours, the funds clearing, you get a purchase share agreement, which is a membership agreement, which outlines everything about your membership. And then you also get a share certificate. So yeah, and the share certificate looks pretty kick-ass. I don't have a mock-up copy of it, but
I'm gonna put it up on my wall.
I can only show you for 5 seconds, but it's not really. Here, see how cool that looks?
That is cool.
Yeah, sorry, I can't show any more than that. It's yeah, it's pretty cool, and I think people are gonna love it because things need to be done right. They need to be done properly, and I think people will get that feeling when they watch this and they resonate. So far, the feedback that I've gotten, the support that I've gotten has been overwhelming because this is what people are feeling it's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool that you're doing this project.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's much better that you're doing it than I'm doing it.
Oh, come on. The stuff that you're doing around alternative healing, that's going to be, that's powerful stuff. So you're going to make change. You're going to do what you need to do. And who knows what you're going to pick up and learn from our new friendship and grow from there, right?
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have any other tough and hard questions? Because I like to be tested. I like to learn and grow. But I'm sure that, yeah, and in terms of your code, you want to mention that?
Oh, the Survival Chicks code?
Right. So let me share that back.
So how would we apply that? So this will help track all of the people that have come from this this podcast, that have come from my group. We can see how many people, how many of you are listening.
Yeah. So when you're here on the checkout page, right above your summary order, you'll see it says have a coupon code, click it here, right? So when you click here, I think your coupon code was
Survival Chicks.
Yeah. It'll be in the video description. I don't want to get the spelling wrong. So you type the
Survival
coupon code
chicks.
here. Yeah,
Yep.
SURVIVAL
Yep.
CHICKS,
Yep.
right? And then you hit apply, and it just gets, again, this is to track that you're coming from this pot. There's not a lot of benefits. I think it's a 1% benefit that you get back. So this is, the code is to track where you're coming from, so that we know that you are coming from Survival Chicks or you're coming from anywhere else, and it helps support those groups and their members and what they're doing in the community as well. So that's where the coupon code goes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And yeah, and if anyone has any questions, they can. Oh yeah, how to get a hold of me?
Yeah. How do we reach you?
You can email me directly at Ray, RAY, at Sovereign Bank that's bank with 2 A's.com.
Okay.
And I'll answer any questions. And if you have investment questions, as I mentioned in the email on that slide, you can email memberships at, well, that was at UBSBC. So either emails go back to our team. So if you want to email me directly, you can do that at ray@sovereignbank.com.
Okay, excellent. And then what if we wanted to find you on Facebook? Like I think that you're totally blocked from search. I went to go, like you're my friend on there, and I went to search you and you don't come up at all. Is that just an anomaly of yesterday, or is that a thing that happens?
I don't know.
Okay.
Let me
Do we, what
Yeah.
about the group? Is it Sovereign Bank, the group? The
Yeah,
group
I'll
where
just-
you shared that original Zoom?
I'll just share my Facebook right now. One sec. Yeah, here's me on Facebook. So let's go to the profile. Let me just search myself. I don't know. Maybe I don't show up.
Well, you probably will because it's you.
I know. I'm searching myself. There I am.
Okay, great. So where
With the
is
blue check
that?
mark.
Yep, that's you.
That's
What about
me.
that group that has the information on Sovereign Bank?
So let me show you some of the groups that I am.
Don't
managing.
keep calm.
Yeah. 20 hours ago. Interesting. So this is one of the groups that I manage.
Reject 15-minute cities.
Yeah, it's got, I'll take you to that. Let me just take you to that right now. So this one, yeah, you'll see it'll look like this. You'll see my name up here, grouped by Ray Brown. So you can join that. Good engagement, try to keep spam out as much as possible. So that's one group. The other group is Trudeau must go, died dead suddenly. You can see,
Oh, yes. I'm part of all of those. I didn't know those were all your groups.
yeah, safe and effective news. And this is the Sovereign Bank. I haven't pushed this hard. It has like, almost 300 members. The other ones, again, a lot of people submit a lot of stuff. It has like almost 2,000 members. And I know that stuff, if I publish it, it's going to censor the group. So I don't disagree with a lot of the stuff that's being pushed out there. But come on, it's I just can't put it because of the dumbness that the social media does.
Okay.
But I think we can create a healthy link and with an image and direct people to go to your site and listen to the podcast or the video. I think there's healthy ways to communicate and do fun stuff. And groups, guess what else have I done? See more. So all these other groups that I also work with as well. So there's a lot of groups. In terms of pages, let's quickly do that. So yeah, actually one more other thing is Fire Fashion. This group has around 300,000 members, 346,000 members. But again, it's fashion related.
Interesting.
Let's go to Via Fashion. So this is one of my other brands, Via Fashion, which has 5.6 million likes. People are probably like, well, how do we know this is your page and all that stuff? Well, if it wasn't my page, you wouldn't see any of this on the left-hand side. So I manage it. I started it. I founded it. It's censored also by Facebook because they don't like me. But this is e-commerce based, right? Then I also have the Woman Life right here that has 1.3 million followers. This was started back in 2012. So it's a great page. Then I also have, again, these are different businesses that I had before what I'm doing right now. Asian Life or Asian Fashion, I think. Yeah. Design and Fashion that has 1.6 million followers. And then I have like, there's so many in terms of pages. If I went to pages, where is it? Pages, the ones I manage, where are they?
Wow, I don't understand how you have time for all of this.
I don't have time to update any of this stuff, right? So these are all like, so these are all the kind of pages I can go on and on that I've experimented with, I tinkered with, and they have a significant amount of followers. Started this a long time ago. I don't even know if you can see anything. Yeah, there it goes. This one has 22,000, almost 21,000 followers. This one has 13,000. You've already seen this one, has 5.6. Yeah, so it's there's a
You've been
lot.
busy.
Keeping busy, yeah. But it's, I think the last little while I haven't been updating anything on these pages, to be honest with you, because my focus is elsewhere. But for people to find me on Facebook, I'm censored. I don't post a lot. They've censored my stuff like crazy. But I don't even know who posted this 7 years. Easy. Hide from my profile. Yes. Actually, hold on. Okay, I gotta delete that stuff. So anyways, this is what you'll see of me, mostly pictures of stars and the moon and stuff like that, just keeping stuff. I think it's been a couple of months that I stopped really posting stuff about a conversation because I know that you can't really have a conversation on social media. So anyways, that's that. So now people know how to find me.
Yeah. Well, excellent. Thank you for coming today and sharing all of the cool things that you're working on. It's really great. I'm really looking forward to the day that it launches and what that looks like for the people and how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm equally as excited. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you. I look
Yeah.
forward to watching you grow, and yeah, any feedback that we get from your members and your audience, I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day out there.
You
We'll
too.
talk to you soon. Thank you.